What's up, y'all? This is Andy Nguyen, and this is the Void keyboard. The Void is an old school design and sound in the current generation package. No scarcity due to low supply, nothing gate kept by raffles, just a solid top mount / O-ring 65% keyboard that has a clean, updated aesthetic. That is the Void. And it starts at $280. No freaking way. Well, it kind of starts at $280. Let's get into it. Budget keyboards in 2024 have basically mastered the gasket sound and feel. We had a bit of a misstep for a period of time in a lot of boards due to having flex cut plates, flex cut 1.2mm PCBs, but we're finally moving away from that and seeing a lot of 1.6mm PCBs, no flex cuts whatsoever. Honestly, we progressed pretty far. It's kind of interesting to see because the budget boards primarily sell in China, and China trends are much different from the Western trends. The thing that has been left by the wayside has been the top mount sound. Some people may view the top mount as being a bit dated, and it's kind of true. In 2024, most people are so used to gasket and foams that top mount sometimes can sound a bit hollow. Master copers may call the hollow sound resonant, but the reality is that case design for some of the older top mount boards kind of suck. This is before the age of force break, which is kind of an easy, interesting fix because all you gotta do is throw a little bit of tape between the top and bottom case, which reduces the metal on metal contact, and it makes a board that sounds hollow not hollow. It's a magic bullet. It's kind of crazy. Despite being able to fix a bad top mount board, honestly, gasket's just more popular. It sounds nicer to the ears, it's more soft to type on, so they can guarantee more sales if they just design around that rather than focus on the top mount that only the old crusty people want to buy. Top mount is just stiffer and less desired in general. But there's still people out there like myself that miss the top mount sound and feel that's so rare these days. In comes the $280 base price Void. I said base price because I had to get this out of the way. The ideal configuration that's hefty and worthy of the endgame moniker is $105 more than the base price. That one really starts at $385. And I know what you're thinking. That is a tall order in 2024. Most of the options these days are super cheap and sound really good. Why would you go with an old sound and feel for more money? But let's get into it and see if it's worth it. The Void is a 6063 aluminum board with the same grade aluminum for the back and bottom for the $280 configuration. So right here I have a coated unit, so it's gonna be a little bit more money, but just think about it. And here, $280, this will be aluminum and this will be aluminum as well. So for $105 more, you get your sandblasted copper weight, which looks freaking gorgeous, as well as the PVD back weight with their logo. Pretty sick. This is the Anorex's logo, the designer. Looking at this thing, this is basically the pinnacle of what a custom mechanical keyboard is, in my opinion. At least the old school definition. The new school is something a little bit more fancy. You got your screens, your dials, your knobs, your LEDs. And there's nothing wrong with that. The Void just appeals to the old school design. So 6063 grade aluminum, check. Shiny PVD weight, check. Heavy big ass weight, and it's copper, check. Simple design with no frivolous electronics, check. Top mount / O-ring, ding ding ding, that's everything people wanted. All in a 65% form factor instead of a TKO. Very clean, no top right blockers, so nothing to distract you. And you got the cherry lip at the bottom. So instead of just going out and straight down, it comes at an angle and then comes down. So what that means is when you put your wrist on here, it's a little more comfortable because your wrist can start angling down faster. Based off of the measurements, the front height is technically around 20.56 millimeters, which includes the rubber feet right here. Yeah, that is not short. It's on the taller end of things, but since there's a slant in the front, the cherry lip, it's gonna feel a little bit lower. I personally think it feels fine. I don't use the 17mm front height boards as much anymore because I don't have any. I personally hover wrists like this, so I feel right at home with this keyboard. But keep in mind that if you do type with your wrist in contact with the table, you're gonna have wrist pain, but you're gonna have wrist pain with a lot of things. At the Key Black 2024 meetup, I brought this keyboard. A lot of people mentioned that the side profile reminds them of the Forever, which I can get. It has the angles and the visual interest, and it shares a little bit of the visual DNA. There's an intentional seam that goes halfway around. It's not a brass weight cutout like the Forever, but I can kind of see where you get that. At the back of the board, we have the Toblerone style weight, which is very similar to the TGR 910 ME. So much so that I kind of forgot that it wasn't the TGR 910 because when I unscrewed it, I just lifted it up and it completely dropped on the desk. Which is bad because it could have scratched from the screws. Somehow I didn't scratch it. The weight doesn't slide in, it just sits on top. So be very careful. Now to the back. This back plate is huge and the weight screws are hidden. All you gotta do is pop off this rubber feet right there. Got 2 screws right there. There is a lot of screws because there are no visible screws on the back, hidden under the feet, and then you have to have a screw to hold down the PVD. But I do like that it's a clean look. It costs more because you have to have custom rubber feet. You need molds for it, but it's definitely worth it. Look at that clean aesthetic from the back. Back in the old days, which is like 3 years ago. Most boards are using clear bump-ons. You had a little recess and you stuck the bump-on in there. Clear bump-ons always got yellow and gross, and they ended up coming off as you slide the board around, so definitely not great. I prefer the custom V. The logo on the back is balanced as well, not too small, not too big. One of my complaints with the Forever was that the logo was too small. It was a huge freaking weight, but it was all hidden. I like seeing the weight itself. The USB connector is low on the table. Good. Really thought of all the things that an enthusiast or an old school enthusiast would be into. The rear of the board has very striking lines. I really like the aesthetic. That's just very nice to look at. No RGB or anything, but this is a very elegant design. Overall, Anorexis did a great job and is very clean all the way through. To get into the rest of the design, we have 7.5-degree typing angle, which is very comfortable. Perfect for me. Plenty of plate options: aluminum, PC, palm, carbon fiber, FR4. I wish polypropylene was offered, but it's not really a common thing. It sounds great in almost everything though, so that would make this the end game of all end games. That would just take this keyboard to the tippy top. So overall, although the design elements hit everything that enthusiasts would want, it is extremely simple. In terms of getting into it, I mentioned before, there's 2 screws for every rubber foot, and there's 4 more screws here. It's hidden, so this is how you keep it together. Definitely worth it to have more screws than that god-awful magnetic backplate to the 910ME. The whole process felt stupid, and it felt like I was going to scuff it every time I worked with it. I also have learned to appreciate a clean back shot. I mean a clean back design with no visible screws. When we get into the board, it's a very interesting design. They actually cut out the bottom of the case to slide the back plate in. That's pretty smart. They did this design to reduce the front height to something more comfortable and tolerable. So they did a great job. I didn't notice any kind of tall front height making my wrist feel uncomfortable. Looking at the plate, we see the fins for the top point mounts. No mounting points near the spacebar, which is good. That is something we've learned over time. We do not want mounting points by the spacebar. It makes things sound worse. There are actually some prototype boards where I just undid the screw or removed the gasket around the spacebar, and it sounded infinitely better. Because honestly, the worst thing that you can do for a top mount keyboard is to have a bad spacebar sound. That's the whole point of top mount. Top mount spacebar is one of the best sounding spacebar in my opinion. It's thick, it's heavy, it's girthy, and it sounds great. I'm talking about the keyboard. The top mount installation was straightforward, and the O-ring was easy as well. You just wrap the O-ring around and then squish it in. The top mount fins are just kind of floating in the O-ring configuration, so they may touch the top case, bottom case, but whatever. That's kind of how top mount / O-ring works for these boards. Of course, there's no mid piece to deal with, so it's really easy to get in and out. We originally built it with aluminum film Gateron cream soda switches on carbon fiber top mount, and it sounded freaking amazing. What do you think? In my opinion, this is pure top mount goodness. The top mount sounds full, sounds amazing across the board. The O-ring mount sounds a little weaker in the spacebar, but the alphas personally sound a lot better, which is kind of what I've experienced in other top mount / O-ring boards. This keyboard sounds very strong and feels great. The top mount and O-ring configuration, pretty stiff in general, so if you use the gasket, there's not much give in this thing, so it's gonna be stiff. It's not like a sandwich mount stiff, but be prepared. Alright, if you're gonna use a light spring, you're gonna slam it into the plate, you're gonna feel it in your fingers. Off stream, I wanted to push forward and try to do with MX Blacks. I did MX Blacks on the carbon fiber that was already in here. I did not like how it sounded. Didn't sound very full. I've always been told that MX Blacks and CF can sound good, but I haven't experienced it myself yet. Now, when I ran it back with aluminum plate top mount with MX Blacks, whew, it sounded very good. But I will say, like the other board I just reviewed, the Paper 80, the spacebar sounded better with some kind of long pole on it. I don't know what it is about that design. The plate design here has a big gap in the middle for the spacebar versus others that have a locked layout where there's no space. So here you have the switch and there's an air gap and no plate. So I don't know which one sounds better. I'm starting to think that having the open air space makes the spacebar sound better. So with the original Gateron cream sodas, there are long poles hide hollowness. Here with the MX Blacks and aluminum, I heard a little bit of hollowness. So I definitely had to install force brake tape all around the board. It's a little bit tricky in the back because of the intentional seam. So I had to kind of just like squish it in there, which is not ideal. You can kind of just run it from here all the way around because of the exposed seam. It's going to improve the sound a little bit. So if you're very sensitive in your ears, definitely consider doing force brake. Without using a long pole switch, it sounded okay. With the long pole, it sounded much better. And those are not even nice MX Blacks, dude. I literally found them in a bag. I don't even know what they're broken in. I really kind of lost track of my MX Blacks. I just find them in my drawers and put them in the board. So personally, I don't like to use a long pole and a spacebar when reviewing a board, but for my personal day-to-day, if there's weakness in the spacebar and I like the board otherwise, just throw in a long pole switch or a BCP in there. Not really gonna be a concern. And if you don't know what a BCP is, before they started selling BCPs, it was a cherry top, J2K bottom, kale or novel keys cream step. So it's like Franken switch, you have to buy 3 switches, mix them together. It was a waste of money. Now they kind of sell it pre-made, so you don't really need to do that anymore. But in my opinion, this is peak top mount 65% sound. Or you can run an O-ring, but usually when it is top mount and O-ring, the top mount is gonna be a little bit stronger because the O-ring is easy to add after you design for the top mount. But in my opinion, top mount is just gonna be better in those boards. So where does this compare in my rankings? So people ask this a lot. On stream, I was very hyped about it, and right now, I'm still very hyped. I compare this favorably against a low quantity top mount king, the Marisi 65. It's an oldie but goodie. Other oldie but goodie top mounts are also the House and the TGR 910 ME. Or you can go back further and go to the TGR 910. There's also the GSK, which is very strong top mount as well, but super expensive, even retail. It's like $700. That's a lot. I view the TGR 910 ME with the aluminum backplate as the weakest of them all because it's basically an all aluminum build. It needs that heft that comes from a heavy brass or copper weight, which is available to buy from a third party. I think this keyboard here is just that. It's a TGR 910 ME with a real weight. I personally would take these over those any day unless I really want something rare. This is easy to acquire without raffle, not expensive due to lack of supply, and an aesthetic that's pleasing to the eye even for someone newer. Overall, it's a solid board. I listened to Tofu type sound tests in the PC unit with all the plates and switches. He was very thorough, and the sound reflects my experience with the coated aluminum unit here as well. The 2 main drawbacks are, 1, if you don't like top mount, this just won't be it. Like, don't buy this. Like, it's pretty boring if you don't like top mount. 2, it is a tall order in terms of price in 2024. We're so used to sub $300 boards, and yes, you can get this at $280, but it's not really a $280 board because it's gonna be all aluminum. I don't really want to buy a $280 all aluminum board when you can get a brass weight for much cheaper. I personally really like this offering because it's personally what I've been looking for. I never ended up getting that Tip 65 Plus that I talked about because I couldn't find it again after that video. And this smokes that one too. The spacebar here sounds better than the Tip 65 Plus, and there's no odd flex cut in the PCB to work around. This is basically the keyboard enthusiasts have been looking for if they're still even in the hobby anymore. Most of my friends I started with are kind of gone these days. The base is like Mode's offerings of the base, so all aluminum. It's there for someone who wants to get in with a lower budget, but what you really want is to have the nice little add-ons. That $105 extra is going to bring it up to $385, and this unit here has the coating, which is another $30, so this is really $415 right here. I don't know if I'd recommend the coating one because the coating is nice. It's It has a texture to it, but it's also more money. If it's gonna be your one and only keyboard, maybe. But if you're gonna buy other keyboards, at $30 can stretch something else, in my opinion. So even at the $385 for the Anno units, I think the red looks super sick. $385 is gonna be a hard sell in 2024. You know, the materials cost a lot, the design can cost a lot. It just is what it is. At $385, I personally would go for this, but these days, there's so many other options. So I personally like it, but what do you think? Let me know in the comment section below. Thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next one. Peace.